The word Bronx was anything for me except a place. The Bronx was a word used in the French vocabulary to say that it was a mess. When someone used to play loud music in the neighborhood, in your own room, the mother or the father used to come and say, "What do you think you are, in the Bronx?"
Something about the Bronx is just, it brings fire in me. I mean, if they do a show down in the Bronx or a big competition, it should be in the Bronx. This is where it started from. It's more spiritual.
If you wasn't from the Bronx, man, you was just beginning somewhere else.
We had the most clubs, we had the most musicians. You had to come up to the Bronx. Everybody was coming up to the Bronx.
We weren't looking for a way out of the barrio or out of the Bronx. None of that. For us, it was, to some extent, spiritual.
When you come out of that number 2 train and it shoots out of that tunnel, man, you walked into a whole new world, man. This is it. You're in the United States now. The Bronx is really important because once you leave the islands, whether you come from Puerto Rico or Santo Domingo or Cuba, or you go to the other island, Brooklyn or Manhattan or Queens, then you arrive here, you're on the mainland. This is where everything spreads out.
The LeBron brothers lived. Over there by the tree was Connie's candy store. And I saw that go in a period of years. I moved from here. I left this place. And for a while, I felt nothing but shame about coming from here. Then that morphed into sadness. Everything you knew as a child, every visual cue from childhood was gone. It reminded me of like Psalm 137, by the rivers of Babylon, we sat and wept and remembered Zion. Now, this wasn't exactly Zion, but it wasn't too shabby either.
Let's start this off with a little rhythm. It's one of the greatest tours in the world when you come to the Bronx. Yeah, my name is Angel, Rodriguez, Cintrón, Rivera, Olivera, Simón, Frepelepe, Villanueva, De La Paz. Aha. Aha. Come on, everybody. Aha.
If you grew up in the 70s, you know about the South Bronx, how the whole neighborhood burned down to the ground. But a more recent generation know it as the place where hip-hop was born, rising up like a phoenix from the ashes. If you're a little bit older, you remember a time when this turf shaped the hot New York Latin music sound that came to be known as salsa. In the years following World War II, hard times in Puerto Rico drove more than 500,000 people from the island to New York City looking for work and decent housing. U.S. citizens since 1917, Puerto Ricans settled in East Harlem and the South Bronx.
Yo, Papa, this is your field. What's up? Show me. Come on, Birdie, baby.
Practically everybody I knew in the music business, I met him in the schoolyard. Then from there, we went on. And stickball is what really got me into music.
We called it the poor man's baseball. Half the kids couldn't afford gloves and equipment, so they invented the stickball with a rubber ball, and you steal your mother's broomstick, take the straw out, and you had a bat.
They would play stickball right on Kelly Street, and when you hit from the stickball, you were hitting towards Longwood Avenue. Constantly seeing them and then knowing about them and hearing them on the records certainly was a stimuli for us, and we wanted to be able to play with one of these orchestras someday.
One of the things
things that I remember vividly when I was growing up in the South Bronx is the sound of drums resonating through the canyons of the projects. The music was so much in full force. The culture was so in your face. There was no way that you could escape it, even if you wanted to. Even if you wanted to. You come from Puerto Rico, man. You come to New York City, the urban capital of the world, not just the United States. You want to get hip, man. You want to, like, you know, get up to speed with what's happening. You start dressing differently. You start talking differently. You start walking differently.
When we were kids, like 14, 13, you know, we all had long hair then. So we used to carry hair combs, man, and like, yo, man, you know, put the hair back. So the combs were, we get to get 3 or 4 guys on a cart.
When I was...
I feel sorry for that guy's car, man. Now that I'm an old timer, oh my God, and that was my car, smack him.
That's a great beat, man.
So you could take the most uneducated person from the mountains of Puerto Rico, un jíbaro del campo, as we say. All of a sudden, he comes to New York City in the 40s, goes to the Park Palace Ballroom on 110th Street and 5th Avenue. The band that they heard was the Machito Orchestra, this incredible hip orchestra that's so sophisticated that even people in the jazz world, their mouths were open when they would see and hear this band. So in 6 months, you see that same jíbaro del campo walking, talking, bopping their head, and all of a sudden they're a New York hipster. You ask me about salsa, what it was, just Cuban music with a freaking New York attitude.
There were so many fire alarms that you could dance to the sound of the bells. That's an image. That's an image, because I'm sure there's a lot of dancing, but I'm sure there's a hell of a lot of jumping.
The Puerto Rican lyrics were a little bit more social. Se Me Quema la Casa is about when the landlords were burning down the buildings here in the Bronx for insurance.
People gradually began moving towards the West Bronx. Going around the South Bronx, you could see, like, gradually the devastation and the abandonment, like, moving in that same direction. Somehow this devastation was following us. It wasn't going to shake us loose. It was trying to grab us, grab a hold of us. And there was this real fear. Are we going to be able to survive this?
By the early 70s, the South Bronx came to be regarded as an idea, not just a place. Its residents kept moving to avoid the devastation. But even when they moved north, the neighborhoods they moved to came to be called the South Bronx.
If anyone were to ask me to characterize my teenage years, you know, the fear factor was running into a gang. And it didn't matter, because you could run into the Imperial Bachelors, you could run into the Golden Guineas.
The turbans, the dragons, the Latin kings, the drinks.
You could run into the ministers, you could run into, you know, the spade.
Oh, God, renegades.
Whoever it was, you were going to have trouble if you weren't affiliated. Because they had things like Get Whitey Day. Now look at me. You know, I could stand there for hours and tell somebody I'm Puerto Rican, but in that kind of atmosphere, they're not going to ask you if you're Puerto Rican. So they had Get Whitey Day for 2 years in a row. People running around smacking people because they were light-colored, you know? That's the kind of bullshit that was happening up here.
If you went through the neighborhood, flying the color you're not supposed to fly in their territory without their permission, your jacket came off. There was no bargaining for it. Your jacket or your life. Or you go back, you know, some scars, you know, to let you know that, you know, you came through the place where you wasn't supposed to go through.
You have to have this deadpan look. When you have this deadpan look, no kid will dare to come up to you and talk anything to you. Because you got this stone cold killer's look. And, you know, I need to practice it. Before you know, it was no more practice after that. It became just me.
In 1973, gang leaders, weary of the endless cycle of violence, organized a citywide peace meeting held at the Boys Club on Hoe Avenue in the South Bronx.
You took away one of our brothers' lives, man. And we were right down the funeral looking at them, saying, I wish the immortals, if they were them, to see what it is to take away one of our brothers' lives.
When we have static, man, we settle out among ourselves, man. Because, like, wow, we got to live in this district. The whiteys don't come down here, man, and live in the fucked up houses, man. The whiteys don't come down here, man, and have all the fucked up fucking no heat in the fucking winter time. You understand? We do, Jack. So therefore, like, wow, we got to make it a better place to live.
Everybody started getting these flyers for a party that was being done in Bronx River. It was like, come one, come all, leave your colors at home, you know? Certain things on that flyer, man. I tell my cousin, come on, let's go. He was like, no, that's a setup. No, because they heard about that before. Like some clubs, like you go to the like social clubs or something, they go, oh, come, a nice little family party. You go there, it's a setup. They close the doors on you and they cut you up and you got a big, that been happening a lot too. So my cousin, I said, yo, man, I don't know, this sounds like something good. So we went to the door, and I was just amazed that when we came in, all you heard was music, right? But next thing you know, you see some people dancing, you know, because they probably all been used to it. Dancing some funk dance or whatever, with girls and everybody. And you're like looking at them like, yeah, yeah. And then this guy gets up, and it's the guy, bam. And I look at him, I'm like, oh, that's that motherfucker. He said he's a black spade. I said, yo, it's a setup. You know, so we started going closer to the door. Van Barther's up there. He said, excuse me, yo. And his voice sounded real soft, you know, like, it sounded harsh. He's like, excuse me, can everyone be quiet for a minute? And the music on, he was like, I'm trying to do this because I feel like all we're doing is killing each other. He said things like, now he realized why they always left the gangs alone. Even though gangs members got arrested here and there, he wanted to know why the gangs were continuously on through the 50s on to the 70s. Why? And he said, you know why? Because they don't give two shits about us. He said they don't care about us, and they want us to end each other.
Hip-hop movement dented that whole gang thing. It's like, hey, this is something else that we can get on. It can empower us. We can still be like a bunch of dudes rolling, but we rolling with something that's cool. We ain't gotta hide what we doing. We ain't gotta run from no police. It could be a whole bunch of us all together, and it's all good because we here in peace.